So members of South Africa's Umkhonto weSizwe party were sworn in on a Tuesday after boycotting the first sitting of the National Assembly nearly 2 weeks ago. Former Western Cape Judge President John Hlophe, who was impeached by a previous parliament for misconduct, including for using his position to try and influence judges in a Jacob Zuma-related corruption case, was also sworn in. ANC members, including corruption-accused Zizi Kodwa and Malusi Gigaba, are back for the 7th administration. For more on this, we are now joined by former SCOPA chairperson Themba Godi. Themba, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. So I was looking back at one of the cases relating to the elections, and this, of course, was related to former President Jacob Zuma. And Nukai Toby, arguing on behalf of the IEC, said that serious lawbreakers should not be lawmakers. In this particular case, they haven't been found guilty of breaking the law. This is now speaking to the individuals that we just referred to in that introduction. However, though, they do face the allegations. On John Hlophe's side, he has been found guilty of a gross misconduct that led to his impeachment. How should South Africans understand what is happening here, where you have people that have been found guilty of gross misconduct, people who are accused of a crime, but still be considered to be lawmakers who have taken an oath as well?
Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting statement from Nukai Toby, that serious law breakers cannot be lawmakers. But you know, in the legal fraternity, once you say serious law breakers, you must then, from a legal point of view, define what is serious law breaking, so that you don't have subjective interpretation. The Constitution merely states that if a person is sentenced to more than 12 months without the option of a fine, that person must just have a cooling off period of 5 years after the end of that sentence. Other than that, there isn't much, except and until you are convicted. If you are charged, if you are accused, there isn't any legal basis to bar one from from being an MP. And I think the case of former Minister Zizi Kodwa brings this into focus. He appeared in court, resigned as a minister, but was sworn in as an MP. So it is a very broadly defined space that allows for all sorts of maneuver. Like you are indicating, there was a case of John Hlophe, there was a case of Advocate Mkhwebane. Those decisions have been taken, whether they're disputed politically or not, but they stand taken. What are their implications in terms of their ability to stand? And what message does it send to the public out there in relation to people who might have been found guilty of this and that, other than criminal conviction?
Yeah, because on one end, of course, you speak about the criminal conviction. That is one element that we're talking about. However, though, if you are not convicted, we live in a country where the jurisprudence is also that you are innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. But how do the public see and understand what is happening where you have, and let's make an example, for instance, with Zizi Kodwa, who resigned as a minister and then also resigned as a member of the ANC-NEC. The ANC-NEC is just but a political party structure, but he's not good enough to be a member of the ANC-NEC, but good enough to be a public representative in parliament.
Yeah, the question of innocent until proven guilty should be seen as the lowest bar in the ethical conduct or in the morality scheme. If we rely on that, then it brings us, it takes us where we are. How do we, in the interest of the public and in our own interest, start to say, if there are serious allegations about you, without having been convicted, how do we develop a culture that says, if there are serious allegations against you, you are accused of having raped or having stolen money or having been involved in some shady businesses, and you are accused, charged, how do we say, no, you can't be a public rep? Yes, you have not been, sorry, you have not been convicted, but you're standing as a public rep. What are the standards? The lowest standards is innocent until proven guilty. But the highest ethical standard should be once you are accused, once you are charged, you should say, you know what, let me pull out. I was just reading something this morning from the SG of the ANC as a guide to the step aside, whatever,
Yep.
which merely suggests, you know, if you are accused, you stay in your post as an MP or as a councillor, but you don't participate, you don't do anything, you get your salary, and life continue as, you know, as normal. So for me, the ethical standards do need to be raised a little, much higher than innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, and here's the other thing about, especially with them facing corruption charges or even a case before the courts, is that our former speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, resigned as speaker, as the head of the legislative arm, because understanding severity of the allegations that she is facing. But seemingly that same, and some people may say that, sure, you can't say that it speaks to Nosiviwe's conscience, but if we do say that it is her conscience, and whatever political machinations would have been underway, what about the likes of the former Minister of Finance, who is back again? Even Des van Rooyen is back.
No, very true. That's why the case of the former speaker, Mapisa-Nqakula, is very instructive and very interesting. Whatever political machinations might be happening behind closed doors, we don't know. What we see as the public is a speaker who said, because I'm charged, I don't want to bring shame and dishonor to this office. Let me step aside. How do we make that a norm and a general practice in the country? I think for me that is the question, and I think it is something that I wish you could pursue, so that we start to have a different conversation. The fact that a person could be charged, go to court, and still be a public rep, for me is linked to the extent to which people serve the public conscientiously. The fact that people have very low ethical standards is, for me, directly related to how we take seriously our work and how we take seriously the complaints, the cries, and the sufferings, and the lack of services to our people. So I think we do need to have conversations in that direction that will put pressure on political parties, on individual public office bearers to say, look, you represent the people, you should represent the best in the country. And how do you demonstrate that? By self-sacrifice once you are accused, without taking away the other debates around the political use of state institutions and the like, but to say, how do we have members who are ethical, who have no blame, so to speak?
Yeah, and that's the difficulty, right? Is that on one end you have the possibility of political interference in the prosecutorial processes of the NPA. Justice Yvonne Mogoro did an investigation around that. There was an inquiry around that has found evidence to that effect. Even if you look at the case of the former finance minister, Pravin Gordhan, the then NDPP advocate Sean Abrams went ahead to charge him. And if the ANC had a step-aside rule back then, that would have meant that Pravin Gordhan steps aside from the position that he was holding at the time. But that also points to the use of prosecutorial processes to influence what is happening in politics. So how do we balance the two?
Very true. Yeah, I think there has to be a disincentive for the state to charge people maliciously. As you were, explaining and coming to this question, it went through my mind that, of course, there has to be a penalty for the state and for the officials who would have taken such a decision to charge people maliciously. So that even if your political bosses say do this, you must know that there's a penalty that awaits you, but equally the state is going to be penalized for charging people recklessly. In that way, you protect individuals, but also you are encouraging people to be ethical. And that is how you find the balance. It's not an easy one in instances where there's a lot of political skullduggery. But as society, if society is also conscious and reward people who are ethical and shun people who are unethical, I think that would definitely, ultimately bring us to a balance where we're able to say, no, we need high ethical standards so that you don't only, when we talk about ethics in public representatives or in parliament, we always look at, the ethics committee in parliament, what they do to individual MPs who might not have disclosed their interests or who might have altercations with journalists or who might have misbehaved in the House.
Yeah.
But I think this is much broader than just the narrow confines of parliament.
Let me quickly ask you this in conclusion. Do you think we need additional rules in Parliament or even change of legislation? I don't know how this would affect the Constitution in relation to individuals that have been impeached. Specifically speaking about impeached, the former public protector has been impeached. The former Western Cape Judge President John Hlophe has been impeached. In that statement that was issued by Parliament, and the finding was that the conduct of John Hlophe threatened the effectiveness of the Constitutional Court and that it threatened public confidence in the judicial system. Do you think that we should have rules in place that say that an individual who has been impeached cannot form part of Parliament up until a certain point, up until maybe we have a cool-off period like we see in Section 47 of the Constitution?
Not very true. I don't think so. I think it really brought that dilemma into question. But it can't be, you can't be a representative without, because the cue must always be taken from the Constitution that says even criminals only have 5 years. So what about a person who was impeached? So there has to be time frames, so to speak. Definitely it does need some form of definition. Otherwise, it just becomes a political football where others, are going to have this hanging around their necks forever, and others just dismissing it. So it is a moral dilemma. It is a challenge. And I think there's still a number of areas that we still need to define legally and procedurally to close the gaps and the loopholes.
Thank you so much for your time. Themba Godi there is the former SCOPA chairperson. Really appreciate it.